taking some guys to shooting October.
But the way it was timed,
We're gonna golf the day before. We're gonna golf. Can you do that?
Where y'all going?
LLC.
Rock Bar.
Get your contract.
Jackson Coles. Third Friday.
And I'm glad we're going to do something like 26.
but not all of them. Yes.
What's he doing? Hold up. Going rock.
I think he's playing for like one of the base teams.
Is he in shape?
What he tells me is he's been working on.
Parking is coming soon.
Movie comes back alive. Saturday.
Colorado in shape.
I played at
It's been a month since part of it is
Divide. It was an excellent.
Divided?
Yeah, I mean, green is great. I had played it, and they changed out the green. And some of the best greens I've seen. Because I live right near there, so yeah. They are. But I thought the Divide was
pretty much straight up.
I thought they were better.
Hard part, yeah. Check it out. Every Saturday, you play with the Blazers.
Okay.
So I'm at the
Back and forth the whole time.
Just in case.
Yes.
Usually we have people having us sit on the couch.
A lot of plays.
Just in case.
My Colorado Springs first daughters. You're doing great. And Boulder.
I know. You have to get up and
I
dance.
know. I was able to tell you I ran up.
Colorado.
It's just the son that was doing that's exciting. What do y'all do when he's not around for the best?
So they're all mad. They don't
Keyboard's like paprika.
call them 5 to 7.
You don't miss it.
Like Smitty playing for weddings.
So basically the last.
No, man, we are just
55 people who were on for 2 hours. I mean, they were on for 2 hours. Breakout groups and like very engaged 55 people for 2 hours. So I think pretty good. Yeah, we had like 80, I think we had 70 or 80 people register and 55 turn up, which is like pretty good turnout rate for us. Yeah.
I'll send you the little document. I finally shared it with the board.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. And so we did the retreat yesterday.
She doing lots of celebrating. Already done. We went to Costa Rica. She's got that. So that check. We can check that off.
And then,
Wow. Yeah, this is the first ever.
Fundraising transition, our training. Training. Yeah, we hired Tristan and Patricia.
I already said you made out there. Oh my goodness, this is I haven't just like we did. I'm just gonna have to sit down.
Absolutely. You're going to go ahead. Yep.
How are you? Yeah, my dad. Is it okay to sit here? Where's it again? There you go. Right, yes, that's right. Okay. Anyway, saying. Yeah, oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's where it is, right there in front of me. Oh, awesome.
Absolutely.
And the bees.
Awesome.
That is 8.
Yeah, it took me a minute to figure it out.
We have 8.
Okay. Well, we have a bunch of soccer games going on Saturday, but Sunday I think we're pretty free. So, yeah. Where do I get the info? Is it on the website?
We have 8. We have 8. I wrote them. Can you come up?
Rock and roll.
PowerPoint, Kevin.
Why not? Thank you. I just didn't.
Welcome.
Welcome, everybody. We're actually, I know you think it looks like nobody's here, but we have plenty of people to start.
Can we get everybody's attention, please?
Hey,
We're starting.
it's like the teacher caught you.
I know, I got busted.
But we are going to get going because we're going to try to get all the way through this in 2 hours, which is a stretch, but
We're gonna do it.
we're going to do it. So hopefully everybody had time to read it. And again, so we know, I think Kevin's the perfect person who's been saying this, but we know that everybody might not like every single piece of this, but we're hoping we can get enough consensus that we can kind of move forward by the end of the meeting and call this our final-ish report. Okay? So no, Kevin and I are going to be looking for hands up to see if people are okay with what's here. If you have things, raise it, let's do it. And we're going to handle it just like we did the last time, which is we're going to make edits in live time, so you're going to be able to see them. Okay? So I think, Kevin, what else?
That's it. The biggest thing we have here is that we've been trying to be consistent. Every meeting we've had, we've asked for a consensus of the group. We've got a consensus all the way along. We'll do it again, but really what we're doing today is going over stuff we've already done. And we're doing that on purpose because we want to make sure that we've got our I's dotted and T's crossed and there's no consternation. And again, if we as a team are not behind this, we got problems. So we're looking for everybody to be behind it because we've got such a diverse group of folks here. That's very, very important for us to happen. But that's what we've been doing all along, so I feel good about it. And I think we're ready to start the process. Just real quickly, Joy is going to stand up. We're going to start at 8. We're going to go back to 1 in terms of the strategies. If you've got heartburn or concern, this is not the time to be quiet. So just tell us what it is. Let's get it on the table. We'll address it, and we'll look for consensus if there's a change, and then we'll move on.
All right, Joy.
Any questions? Let's do it.
Thank you both. I'm just going to quickly, this is what Kevin just said. So I just want to say thank you, everyone, for all the hard work to get to this point. So really appreciate all of that. And thank you for being here. And so I will be doing the edit, any last edits in real time. Joy, do you want a mic?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering where she was
Okay.
from.
I guess
This one doesn't move, so.
I will go over here.
There's one, yeah, there's one.
Oh, real quick, while Joy is getting a mic, want to just, this is again, it's the same slide you have seen before, but it just shows where we are. And so this is an important meeting. Welcome, Charles. Hey. Okay, so let's see. Joy, you got it? Okay. So let me just move to the.
So Leah is pulling up so again, as you noted, we're going to be making changes in real time. We're going to start with priority number 8, strategy 1. So starting in your packet, page 43. And we are actually only making changes. What you'll note in this document is that we are going over the edits that we
Yes, no, and I just wanted to clarify that the printouts that we put on the tables are the redlined versions you received last Friday. So that's what's there in case you want to have that referred to. What we're showing you up here is the clean versions with just a few additional things that a few folks have contacted us about in the last couple of days, or there are one or two things we noticed. And so that's what you see here in track changes. So if you see a lot less red up here on the screen compared to what's in your printout, that's why.
And then the last point of clarification is that I am actually going to talk about the substantive changes as opposed to typos or commas. There weren't too many typos. There's mainly around commas and movement of commas and those types of things. So we won't necessarily go through those, okay? Okay, so since we are on priority 8, I am going to go straight to strategy. Oh, I made the change myself.
I'll just go to where the redlining is.
Thank you.
Yep.
Strategy 2.
It is strategy 3. Strategy 3, in strategy 3, we had a note that is, yeah, this is just,
No, I think it's strategy 2. Take a look. We rewrote one.
If that's the printout, then that's from last week. So we're not going over the ones that everyone agreed to last week. This is one that Meg reached out to us with on strategy 3. And so these were some, am I correct,
This is the one
Joy?
you
Yeah,
sent
these
out
are some.
Friday that I'm looking at.
She's looking at a different one.
Exactly, and so I just
No,
wanted to clarify.
What I'm saying, she's not looking at the one that was on the table. She's looking at the one you sent out
Last Friday.
last Friday.
That should be what's on the table.
That's what
Oh.
and it is.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, okay.
strategy
Yeah.
2 that has all the changes.
Right, and so we're not going over those because those are the ones that the steering group agreed to on September 12th, but we just wanted to have those around in case anyone wants to refer to what was sent out and doesn't have their own copy. These right here are some changes that Meg reached out with yesterday. And so that's what you see in blue in track changes. You can see, right, Meg? These are some of the changes that you reached out with. And so you can see where we've incorporated those.
so, yes, so looking at action number 2, for example, you see individual professional development replaces increased teaching time. So essentially, the sentence becomes, or the action becomes, create unique fund for arts educators, not arts education, to apply for technical assistance grants for materials, supplies to decrease out-of-pocket expenses, and individual professional development, period. Okay?
Is there any way we can make it slightly bigger? My eyes are just really
Yeah,
bad.
you can't read it.
Now, Priya, do you need the navigation part, or is that helpful for you?
It might be helpful for when I'm trying to go to stuff,
Yeah.
but I will just zoom in on
Thank you for
this.
that.
Sure, is this
That's good.
better?
Yep.
So then there are some kind of commonalities. For example, looking under action 3 in the second bullet point, you'll see we've removed city. This is common throughout, especially in this priority. It's a position that's not necessarily designated city. It is instead arts education coordinator to help foster, manage, and encourage inclusion of arts educators. So the big change, or the change is the elimination of city. Okay? As I please do, pause me if there is any changes or any questions that you might have about anything that I am saying. Okay? Melody.
Sorry. Can we go back to action 2? That sentence I'm a little confused by. Create unique fund for arts educators to apply for technical assistance grants for material supplies to decrease out-of-pocket expenses and individual professional time. decrease individual professional time? Is that what it's trying to say?
Individual professional development.
But I agree, because it's
But-
saying to decrease that.
Right, yeah. So there needs to be like a semicolon or move that somewhere else. It just doesn't,
No, there needs to be a comma after expenses.
Right.
yeah. Okay, is that what it is? But what are they doing with individual professional development? Like, what's the action for that?
Create unique fund for arts this is good, so we're making the sentence clear. Create unique fund for arts educators to apply for technical assistance grants for materials, for supplies to decrease out-of-pocket expenses, for individual professional development.
Maybe opportunities?
Well, no, I don't think it's a problem with what it's saying. What I'm saying is, the way it reads now, you don't think that 4 is with it. It almost seems like the decrease is with it. So maybe either we can put, create unique fund for individual professional development and to apply for yada, yada, yada. I don't know, but I feel like the way it reads now is very confusing.
I totally agree. Do we need materials and supplies? Are those different? Like, could you do what she's saying and put individual professional development first, and then supplies to decrease out-of-pocket expenses, and just take materials out of it? It just seems like I don't know what the difference between materials and supplies is.
Meg, you're nodding, that's fine, like, from your perspective, yeah.
It can get
We can delete this, right?
out of, right.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the justification or reasoning for it, that it's not necessary.
I think that's necessary. I do think that's
Oh, do
necessary.
you?
No, I think the decrease out-of-pocket expenses, because that's a really real thing.
No,
that
it is a real thing
Yeah,
that
I
happens,
think
that's,
I
yeah.
just think we need to move the sentence around.
Okay.
Tim, could you microphone? Thank you.
I understand exactly where you're coming from, but if we start explaining in each bullet what the like to that level of, we're gonna be here for another 4 months and have a really illegible thing. I mean, I think,
Preference, I'm just saying, the way it reads. Okay.
yeah, I'm.
Can I ask a question? Can we instruct Joy and Priya to make it clear? They've heard us, they know what we're looking for. Is that okay?
Professional development, put it
Yes.
first, and then.
So we're going to say, I'm going to say this out loud, okay? To apply for technical assistance grants for materials and individual professional development, and decrease
Right.
Out-of-pocket expenses.
out-of-pocket expenses.
Got it. Is that okay?
Well, it's the to decrease out of pocket.
Okay, to decrease.
Yeah, I mean, if you feel like it needs to be in there. The idea is that arts teachers are often, as are any teachers in public schools, often using their own money to buy the things that they need in their classrooms. And so we're trying to,
I think we get it, Meg.
Yeah.
I think we're there.
Yeah, and so this was a clearing our throat moment, but what we don't want to do is, we don't want to haggle over words, all to Tim's point, understood. So we are going to just continue through, moving as quickly as we possibly can. The next changes, as I said, the tenor of the arts education coordinator, we know what the reasoning behind is, just a position that needs to happen, okay? The next strategy, so that was strategy 2, right, or what was that?
3.
3, don't go backwards, Joy. So now we are strategy 4, okay. So strategy 4, we actually if you wanna move up a little bit. So strategy 4, we actually had a change. This is the one okay, so essentially what we've done is deleted the bottom action of encourage innovation through arts and technology, and moved the tenor or the sentiment of what because that action was not as clear, it could be kind of nebulous. Move that tenor up to the action that is around fund development of new programs or provide subsidies for expansion of existing programs, and added just a line at D, sub-action, arts and technology programs. So that's in the list of all of these development of new programs or provide subsidies for expansion of existing programs. Okay? All right? So those are the big picture changes for priority 8. Are there any questions regarding priority 8?
And let me just interrupt real quick. Because we're trying to go through this, not so fast that you don't get a chance to say something, but we're going to assume silence means that you're okay with it.
Well, I'm actually gonna say, it's okay that we can leave 8, everybody a thumbs up on 8 with the changes.
One question, go ahead.
And don't make edits that are punctuation and things, please.
Strategy number 5, if you can go to the outcomes for strategy number 5. There's some really confusing language on the first bullet point. Attract and retain more burgeoning artists to the region through their increased incomes. Creatives will contribute even more to the region's economy.
Yeah, that's a terrible sentence.
I'm not, I think what you want to do is put a period in between region and through, because you're trying to say attract and retain more burgeoning artists to the region. Through their increased incomes, creatives will contribute even more to the region's economy. Is that?
Yep.
Great.
Task Force, yeah, just making sure, Task Force 8 folks, good with that? Okay, correct, okay.
And then the third bullet, or do you want to make that change first?
I want to make it and
Okay.
move on, yes. That's what we're doing.
All right.
Okay.
And then the third bullet point, I really don't understand. Stability within the arts sector for emerging artists, the region becomes friendlier for those this finding their footing. I'm not sure what that's.
I don't know what that means either.
Yeah,
Gonna ask the,
it should just be probably those finding their footing. I mean,
You're gonna need a-
Speaking of Mike, we
gotta
can't
get
hear
a
you.
mic. You have to get a
I
mic.
was
just
gonna
put
ask is Corey here?
No.
No, okay.
I think if, unless you really need, if you put a period after artists, I don't think you really need, the region becomes friendlier for those finding their footing. I mean, it doesn't seem.
well, or maybe that's the eventual outcome. So does changing it to a semicolon work?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Okay.
Oh,
Is that
yeah,
okay?
Just
semicolon.
take out the word "this" for those finding their footing.
I guess I'm just not understanding what for those finding their footing means.
No, so essentially it's the region becomes friendlier for those, well, maybe,
Yes.
well, it's like looking to find their footing, but you don't want to add looking to find their footing.
Is what they're trying to say stable artists? Because the stability
No,
within the arts sector.
I think there's, well, Meg, you're the chair who's present for this task force, but to me, I see that as those finding their footing referring to the emerging artists because they're emerging, so they haven't found their footing yet, they're not established. I don't know if
Well, why don't we
that's,
say that? It'd be much
Yeah.
easier to say
Yeah,
friendlier for
that's-
emerging artists.
Meg, does that seem like what your task force was thinking?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that would be fine.
Okay, so Cindy, what you were saying, say,
The region becomes friendlier for emerging artists.
Yes. Take out those.
The footing.
Oh, for those, yeah, that's fine. We can- That was it for 8 for me.
Great. Anything else on 8?
Going once, going twice?
Okay, we're going to 7.
All right, yay. All right. So starting with priorities, with priority 7, or going to priority 7, strategy 1.
one more minute, please.
No worries.
Seven.
Priority
7,
strategy
strategy 1. It is actually on page 36.
Page 40.
Well, this one says,
Yeah,
Page
so that's because Wait,
Okay.
you're talking about page 40 of the,
Gotcha, okay, got it.
which
Page
one?
40 of the printouts that you all have on the table. Okay, so,
Well, we don't have any edits on strategy
awesome.
1,
Yep.
and we have no edits to strategy 2. Is that correct?
Correct. I can't see the full just in case it's,
Oh,
but
yeah,
I think we're good to go.
yeah, just because we zoomed.
Joy,
in.
this,
I just had a quick question. I thought I recalled from our last full meeting that we were going to add examples of those other sectors, or did we decide not to do that?
I think we
Because-
added that in the August meeting. Is that the one you mean, Meg?
Yes,
Versus
I just
last
don't
week?
see that, I don't see that reflected here. But, I mean, the priority still says foster collaboration and cooperation through the creative ecosystem and with other sectors. But I don't see a list anywhere on this page of other sectors as examples. But maybe, I remember that we had that conversation about the healthcare sector or the,
I remember too, and I remember that we had a version where those were listed.
Okay.
Computer.
Yeah, it seems to have disappeared. Can you all pull that back out of somewhere?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just add that back in where, we did add that after the August 22nd meeting, I believe.
It's gonna take me a minute to find
That's
those
fine.
versions.
While we're looking for that, though, please comb through number 7 and see if there's other questions.
I submitted this in writing, Priya, so you can have it there, but I don't know if it's more than just substantive, but I think we talked about, a lot of these strategies refer to what the new governance structure is going to be, and sometimes we refer to it as the Arts and Advisory Board leadership, sometimes we refer to it as the new governance
Those are
structure.
two separate things. So
Are
I
they?
want you to be clear
Okay,
that both will be in here because some of the initial implementation between now and next July 1st, this Arts and Advisory Board will be helping steer. After that, including hopefully steering towards the new governance structure, then we have a new governance structure. So you may
Okay.
see both, and in some places, one and not the other. Does that make sense?
yeah, so if there.
Could you repeat that? I'm trying to follow.
Yeah,
this.
I'm sorry. So you're going to see both the new governance structure and the Arts and Cultural Advisory Board in different places, and they are two different things. We have, as of now, about 9 months left on our work plan for the advisory board. I'm not crying, I'm sorry. And so during that time, there are some things that this board will be doing, including getting more clarity around the new governance structure. At some point, the new governance structure carries the ball. So you're going to see them both.
Okay. I just want to be clear, at this point, we still don't know what the governance structure is.
We do not. I mean, we have.
Well, we have
Yeah, we have.
We have
Priority
what's,
2.
yeah, we have what's in priority
Right,
2. But, I mean, like, who's on it, those kinds of things,
No.
you know, we don't have names and that.
That makes sense. There are times when we say Arts and Culture Advisory Board and Steering Committee, which I thought is what you're talking about, like what we're doing here. And
Okay,
then,
so that's 3 things. You got the Arts and Council Advisory Board.
right,
You've got the Arts and Council Advisory
Arts and
Board and
Culture,
Steering
yeah.
Committee, which is in here right now,
okay.
the big group.
And then
And then
what-
you have, the third is the new structure.
Well, then I'm seeing a fourth because I'm also seeing Arts and Culture Advisory Board leadership.
Yeah.
So
I
is that a
think, I
different?
think that was intentional by the task forces that put that in.
How is that different from the,
It's a
what the?
smaller group working on, we'll break
Okay.
into smaller groups to work on some of these pieces.
Okay, I was trying to get straight what those differences were, but it's a leadership of the Arts and Culture Advisory Board. Okay.
Or one of the task
Correct.
forces. Could be.
Keep talking because I.
Okay.
You know, example of that would be
That's okay.
each task, each strategy has two co-chairs of each of the eight
Priorities.
priorities. Thank you, I get my words right.
I'm gonna
Okay.
keep trying to find it, but let's go.
Let's,
let me ask
let's
a
keep
question.
going. Yeah, well, I think Julia's also looking for,
Okay,
for
so
that.
can we go to 6 while they look?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that-
outside of the fact of needing to define the sectors, is there any other pain in number 7? Any other issues, questions?
I just wondered about the initial action fund collaborative multi-year initiatives between two or more organizations. You know, if this first strategy is around the cross-sector collaborations that would be potentially with private sector industry or entities, social service, whatever, I mean, it's unclear who's doing the funding there, and I certainly would hope that those partners would play a role in the funding. So that if there were a cross-sector collaboration with Duke Energy or with Atrium Health or et cetera, that the city or this funding pot that we create, I don't know. I mean, to me, that's a little vague. I don't know that we're gonna end up changing it tonight, but I'm just calling attention to, in cross-sector collaboration, you would hope those partners, if they are multi-million, billion-dollar industries or whatever, that they would be putting some money into the funding.
Carlos Alexis, way to time that, because we are literally talking about, action 1. Welcome, Carlos. Welcome, Carlos. So we are on priority 7. Strategy 1, we're going backwards. In
Page
numerical
40, if you're looking
order.
for it.
So we're on action 1. Meg, you were just saying that you would hope that the folks who are involved in those other sectors are involved in the funding. And while you're settling, Carlos Alexis, I will just share what I recall from our conversations in the task force conversations, that my recollection is that that's why philanthropic groups and private sector are indicated under the leaders and the potential partners, as well as the city of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County. But can you confirm or correct me if that is not why those are there?
No, that is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
Okay. To Meg, I don't know if that addresses the comment you were sharing. Okay.
Okay, anything else on 7?
Yeah. So now I'm confused. The collaborations, are you saying, Meg, they're between an arts organization and then a part of the business sector? Or two arts, or you know, when it says fund collaborative multi-year initiatives between 2 or more organizations, is the intention 2 or more arts organizations? Because we wouldn't need to fund an organization, a partnership between Bank of America and
I think it's arts.
it's arts, right? Yeah. So that's just not what that's not what I heard. So you may just want to add the word arts, because the way.
All right, so then it is not, in fact, that strategy 1 deals with cross-sector, arts sector, arts and culture with other sectors, but in fact, both strategies are dealing solely within the arts and culture sector.
That's what I see it to say, because you would need to fund an organization between a partnership between a funder and an arts organization. The funder's doing that.
Right, although I think that, well, I mean, Carlos and.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
you
Carlos,
guys
you
should-
got to speak up, because you're the
Yeah,
leader
I mean,
of
I'm
that
not
group.
thinking, when I say like Atrium Health and Artists, I'm not talking about Atrium solely as a funder. I'm actually thinking that they would be a program partner in a collaborative partnership where you're doing arts and health, for instance.
I think that's great, but the first word in that is fund.
Right,
we're
that's why
funding
I
that
asked the
relationship.
question. Right, which was why I asked that question about it.
Okay, so now that we've cleared up throat even more, what were you about to say?
Yeah, no, Carlos has got to answer the question. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I just was trying to land in this space.
But I think originally the thought was that, for these collaborations to happen, funding structures like needed to be in place, and that, and emphasis in that it to be a multi-year thing, because collaboration takes time to marinate and so on. The reality is, I think, when we look at this strategy, there was the question that, are we just talking about artistic groups, or are we talking about all the potential collaborations that expands the use and meaning of the arts? And we sort of opened the language there a little bit. And so I think, as far as I recall, it's a little bit of both, but we're talking about taking an active role into funding multi-year setup that will open the space for that kind of collaboration also to happen, that and also just between artistic groups. I don't know if that is too broad or too big or too vague, but I think that was kind of the thinking behind it. But the genesis of it all was, if we're talking about collaborations across sector, we gotta think a little bit more strategic in the planning of that to be multi-year, and that there is funding secure or funding directed to those endeavors. That was the why.
I mean, I love the multi-year funding. I feel like there's, I don't want to get into the finer points. I don't want to be this guy tonight, but there's funding it, and then there's encouraging the relationship between sectors and arts organizations. That word fund is just tripping me up, because I'm all for funding relationships between arts organizations that are multi-year and all that. But if there's a third-party private entity that's getting into relationship with an arts organization, hopefully they're the funder, and we're not giving private industry funds.
Right. So let me see if I can clear this. So if the issue is two or more, and you have the word organizations there. So there's multiple ways of looking at this. It could be arts organizations, but I think what I heard you say, Carlos, is that pigeonholes it a little too much. And so I want to make sure, is that correct? Did I say that right? Is that the reason why the word arts is not in front of organization?
I think we were trying to be strategic to open it up a little bit more, because that was a thought that came in one of these sessions. So in response to that, we kind of took that word away. But now the question is, the hope is real, but the hope probably not necessarily what could happen if you don't incentivize it somehow.
I just want to point out, because I think it'll be helpful to this. So we found the language that changed in the versioning, and so if you can see the gray highlighting up in the strategy statement, that now has the language that we added in that meeting that you're referencing.
I can't
see
read
it,
but
Can't read it.
read it for us.
So now it says, incentivize and enable cross-sector collaborations within the creative ecosystem and with other sectors, in parentheses, such as healthcare, manufacturing, education, social service, et cetera, through funding and technical support. And those of you who were there for the August 22nd meeting will recall we drafted that language as a group.
Yeah. Okay.
Which actually then makes one clearer. think now.
I agree.
kinda know
I think
what-
now
I
it's
think we're
clear
kinda
what
okay.
that refers to.
I think that defines what comes underneath it.
Does that help everybody?
Everybody good?
Okay.
Thank you, Priya.
Good on 7?
Great, one conversation. All right, let's go to, all good on 7. Everybody good on 7 all together? Okay, let's go to 6.
We don't have any fresh track changes since September 12th.
Okay, so take a quick look at 6. We've already said okay to this one. There weren't any changes, but let's look over it again and see what you got.
So my apologies, but on strategy 1, and maybe you all changed this last week when I wasn't here, but in August, we had changed the word seekers to participants up in the green,
Just change it up
Which
in the
word did
top.
you change?
Yeah.
where it says attitude of non-seekers, and the seekers, we had changed that to participants in both cases.
I remember that for some reason.
Yeah, I did too.
that also is in bullet point 4 of the action seekers, needs to be participants, or action 4, I guess.
Can I ask you? Remember what we put in its place?
Participants, wasn't it?
We just
Participants,
Yeah.
instead of seekers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
non-participants and participants?
Yeah,
Is that what we
we've
did?
changed, yeah, they're now changed.
Okay. That's okay, we just changed it. Is everybody, anything else?
Can I ask a question? Yeah, I've got a question about, in strategy 2, the third outcome of requiring 3% to be paid, to be used for marketing. Does that cover every operating grant we make, even if it's not for events, it's just to help the institution survive?
Where are you looking?
Yeah, it's under
It's-
outcomes.
It's under outcomes, I'll highlight.
It's the third
If you
dot
can
down
see
under
the
outcomes in
gray-
strategy
That's a
2.
really good question.
If you're looking up at this screen, it's highlighted in gray.
It says requires all recipients of arts and cultural grants or funding, government, private, corporate, to use 3% of the grant for marketing and communications to the event, artist, performance. So I'm looking out at you folks that are in the arts sector and saying, well, what do you think?
It says event, art, and performance.
Well, I mean, the question is, if you give the Mint an operating grant, not for an event, just an operating subsidy, right? Do they have to spend 3% of that grant on marketing? Do they have to sign a paper to do that?
Is the idea, yeah. Yeah.
I'll,
That's the intent,
It's like a,
that it's not just, there's.
Well, is the word
To increase the branding and the messaging around the arts community, it's going to take every single person involved. And I think we saw that with the way that, with the taxes, not everybody did their fair share in promoting that piece. So this is intent on kind of putting the requirement in place that you are doing your fair share to advertise and market.
There's no exception to it.
Yeah, I was wondering if require is
It's a
the
best
right
practice, yeah.
word. I'm gonna say this out loud, I'm not comfortable with this.
But what,
I've been on too many arts boards to be comfortable. And then maybe the word encourage would make me feel a little better.
I'm curious about where it's placed, because it's listed as an outcome.
Right.
Versus an action or a tactic. So it's so that's my first flag, is like, if you want it to be an action, I think you might want to move it over. But you could have an outcome be that all arts organizations are doing marketing and communications at 3% or above as an outcome. But right now, your action, anyway, doesn't matter, whatever you want to do with that.
I think that's what we meant, right? I think what we meant was that we would like to see that recipients of arts and culture funding use 3% of the grant for marketing and communications.
I like what Charles just said. Can you say it again, Charles? Maybe not.
yeah.
I'm hearing two things from your group. I can see, I'm not attached to this, but because you have it listed as an outcome, you want it to be something that occurs after an action, right? After some activities. So you might want to rephrase this as to your desires that in 5 years, let's say, all the arts organizations are spending over 3% of their budget on marketing communications. If you want to make it a requirement, which we can debate, you might want to list it as an action over on the left side. Does that make sense? It's just the way you're phrasing it. It's for the column that it's in. It's just not aligned. So I would just play with your wording.
I do like what you said, desire to see in some time period, arts and cultural organizations are spending 3% of their annual operating budget on marketing and communications.
I have a question.
It might be an action.
That actually goes against kind of you guys are getting more into operating budget than ours was around the conversation that we were having from hearing from artists that they were depending on other people to do their marketing for them, for their own show, for their whatever. And we're like, no,
if you're a business, you do your own marketing. So that's one of the reasons I think maybe it's just been too long but one of the reasons that we specifically say here, event, artist, performance. Now, I think it is a best practice if we are encouraging all nonprofits to act like businesses, that they do have a budget line item that is a percentage of their business going forward to go toward marketing, and that, I guess that's where it kind of is an outcome, because if we're going to invest as a community our taxpaying dollars and our corporate philanthropy into developing this kind of communication plan, it cannot be supported unless all the artistic institutions and artists are doing their fair share. You're never going to have enough money for one, for an agency to do it. So I think require, I feel strongly about when it comes to a grant for a specific event, show, performance, because it's all about, we talked in the beginning, it's all about filling seats. It's all about selling tickets and filling seats. And you can't do that if people don't know that you have it. Now, if we want to talk about operating later, and that's a goal down the road, that's fine, but the outcome would be, and I don't think it really falls under the action, because the action is all around like an overall strategic Charlotte cultural marketing plan. And this is an outcome that now we have an expectation that there's accountability among artistic institutions and artists to do their fair share.
April, I hear you saying something that this doesn't say. I hear you saying project grants. Because
it says events, artists,
general
and
operating
performance.
grants, if you don't want it
Nothing
there.
says operating in there.
No, I know.
But is this, so just to kind of ask the question, is this to Charles's question, is this an action as opposed to an outcome?
No, I think she's saying it's an outcome, because what we want to, what our group wanted to see is that 3% is being used, at least of these entities, these organizations and individuals that are receiving arts and culture grants and funding, that at least at 3% are doing it. So maybe a good compromise middle ground here is to just take out require all, but put recipients of arts and culture grants and funding to use 3%, blah, blah, blah. So that essentially.
Go ahead, sorry.
I'm just saying, so that we're saying that through these action items that we're have on the left-hand side, what we're trying to get to is a place where, an outcome is that at least 3% is being used for marketing and communications.
So I have a question / observation on two aspects of that. One is that as I read this, that outcome wouldn't be an outcome of the strategy, which is about a comprehensive plan. I understand that that's a desired outcome. I'm wondering if, because this has more to do about, it's tied to funding, right? It's tied to funding and how the funding's used, which is a little bit more like, that's more kind of tends to be nested under priorities 2 and 3. Whereas the strategies that are under priority 6 are more about the research and the development of the comprehensive plan for communications, marketing, et cetera. And so with that, it doesn't necessarily specifically relate to funding. It's more like in line with the plan that comes out, then there would need to be like a funding practice, or that goes along with that probably lives somewhere else and lives somewhere else. So that's one. The other one is just like my own just from my own background, not to speak for anyone else in the room who's doing arts funding or marketing, but I know that at least when we would look at how much a marketing budget was allocated, we would look for it to be higher, like closer to 10% or something. So just the question being around sort of like a combo of, is 3% enough, or is that something that's a recommendation that comes out of the plan that's being developed in the strategy? Like would the plan maybe actually yield a suggestion for what amount should be used for marketing? Because I know last week we talked a little bit about, there were some things where we thought, well, maybe that doesn't get added right now because it actually would be it would be a result of the plan that's developed. Does that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not speaking for the whole group 6. I don't care if it's housed under here or if you move it. I think you're right, Priya, that it tends to work more under priority number 1, where you're talking about building up, you know, the entities and organizations that are being funded, their sources of funding, and maybe like an outcome of that, of one of those strategies is to have a certain percentage that, or if you don't want to put percentage, just ensuring that marketing and communication is funded. Because I see what you're saying. It doesn't tie directly to any of those action costs on the left-hand side, but I think we still would like to see that it's in some point in the plan, right?
And I think, I mean, if you look at all the outcomes, all the outcomes, the purpose of the outcomes was to tie back to the underlying philosophy that it is everybody's responsibility to market. So you talk about, we've got leveraging corporate communication channels, leveraging government incentive programs, you know, public art programs. So at some point, even if we move it to somewhere where it's tied to funding, you know, with neither here nor there, but there still needs to be something in the outcomes that says that if we go through this exercise that is designed to gather data and embrace the entire community to create a branding strategy that everybody's kind of like, okay, that there's a commitment from everybody to support it. And that needs to be in the outcomes in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Well, what if it's, oh, go ahead.
Chris has been waiting.
So, I'm viewing this as two different things and just trying to get clarity, because April, when you talk, to me, it seems like you're talking about sector, the entire, like everyone needs to be advocating for and marketing the sector. But in here, it talks about, you know, event artist performance. So I think about if David received a grant, are you saying, as it states right now, 3%, excuse me, of that needs to go towards marketing his exhibition, or 10% or whatever?
And that was the original strategy.
Okay, or, I guess, or if Doug gets, you know, an operating support grant, he would need to be, is it their respective organizations, or are you talking about sector because it's two separate? I'm just trying to make sure I'm
I think we're
understanding.
specifically talking about, for the artist, this particular bullet was tied to the artist, the event, what they were doing. So if you're getting $10,000 to open a gallery show, but you're not putting anything toward marketing, but then you're blaming the fact that there's nowhere to promote your, you know, or whatever, that nobody comes, but you didn't market it. So we're trying to, like, again, go back to the concept of, you know, what from an education standpoint is that it isn't just if you build it, they're gonna come. Like, you've gotta have
Right,
some.
no, I get that. I just wanted to make sure, it seems like at one time they're talking about projects, and then sometimes
for
when
the
you talk,
artists-
it's
for the
about,
artists in
hold on.
particular-
When you talk, then it's about marketing, you know, the entire, the sector.
But I
So-
think when you look at the outcomes, like, a corporate communication channel is not gonna, unless they have a relationship with you or unless they funded something specific, they're not gonna push a specific event, maybe or maybe not, through their corporate communication channels. But we should be able to rely on them to drive interest of their organization to, you know, to look for something. So I do think it's, most of those bullet points, I think, would be tied to sector. That one in particular was just specifically tied to the concept of, the whole concept of this priority is getting more participants, filling more seats, selling more tickets, and that can't happen unless there's funding of marketing around it.
May I make Julie and I have a combo suggested edit, which is just a slight edit that might capture what you just said, is like, what if it just says, recipients of arts and cultural grants or funding, et cetera, use, well, wait, what was it? It's like, hold on. It could say something like, will adequately market and communicate the event, artist, or performance, and be adequately funded to do so. So a version of that which provides both for the fact that they need to be adequately funded to do so, otherwise how would they do it? But also it says that they will do the funding.
But who determines what's adequate?
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
no, I think the organization would know. I mean, at least in my experience, like organizations often would know how they would like to market, but sometimes they don't have the funding to be able to market in the way that they would like to do. So it's not that if it's under-marketed or communicated, at least just speaking from my own, experiences with organizations, it's not because they, it has more to do with the resources being available to market it as much as they would like. Does that make sense? So they kind of know how much they would like to push something out, but might not realize or have the resources to do it to the full extent. That's what I'm getting. Yep, wait, and I think, did Tim have a hand up for a while? Oh, yes, go ahead.
Yep, it's green.
Is on now? Okay. So just from my experience working with small organizations, but also as an individual artist, again, just to support what Priya just said, it's not that small organizations don't have, they don't want to market, it's just having the capacity and the funds to do it. So being supported in that way. And number two, as an individual artist, there are some grants that you get that is specifically, let's say, to buy, a 3D printer, right? And that's the budget, and that's what you buy. Unless you have, I'm just saying, we don't have to discuss this, but as grants are applied for, there needs to be also money in there for them. If you're requiring folks to put part of their budget into marketing, that has to be also in there, because if they're only applying for a specific thing, you're just kind of taking away from what they intentionally wanted to get money for. That's it.
So does that?
Did we have another hand up over here?
So I love the spirit of this because marketing is a best practice. But for the reasons Milan just brought up and other things, maybe it doesn't need to be stated here, and it needs to be in the fine print of grants that come out. Because grants always have, we require, if we give it a grant out of the infusion fund, that you put the nice chunky logo with 900 other logos, Every time you get a grant, there are requirements. I think that maybe as a spirit thing, we need to write down that as these different grants come out, there should be a marketing component to the ones where it matters. If it's for a public event, or it's for an offering, or it's for a product, yes. If it's to buy materials for a printer, there's nothing to market there. But the spirit of it, in my mind, is marketing is almost always the last thing that's thought of or funded. And, just in my capacity, we get press releases for an event the day of the event. And so through education and through what we require or what is required in a grant, I think that marketing piece should come through that way, because it's just not being done. And then, Krista, you brought up an excellent point. I don't think that we should require people to promote the sector, but by them promoting their event, it's constantly out there that there are things going on in it in aggregate talks about the sector. And I think in that way, but if we don't ask for marketing and we don't require it in some way or form, that's people that aren't looking for it are going to say, I didn't know that was happening. I didn't know there were a lot of things going on in the market. So it's a good point. Maybe it doesn't belong here, but it absolutely should be a requirement in certain grants where it makes sense.
Could you, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so, one of the things we heard a lot in the hearing sessions earlier on was, these individual artists, small organizations, saying that there's so little unrestricted funding. It's all project grants. And as you all know, a lot of major entities are going to trust-based granting. The idea that the recipient organization is the best judge of how to use the money. So while 3% is not a big chunk, I think this kind of goes against the spirit of, it's still restricted funding. And if each task force, added their own things about 10% should go to equity work or 5% should go to collaboration, I think the in principle, I think this is not the right direction to, or the right approach.
Can I make a suggestion? I think maybe, if you look at strategy number 4 of priority number 1, it seems like that's where this type of language should come in, because it's all about building the capacity of the fund, the ones being funded, and like, if you look at those outcomes, like develop arts and culture-specific business curriculum with measurable outcomes, model for support of administrative services. There's like all these things that we want those that are getting funded to do, and maybe we just put in, dedicate a certain percentage of funds for marketing and communication. It seems like that might be the more logical place to put it and not specify a percent. I mean, I don't remember what 3%, I don't think we were like, it has to be 3%. That was just like a number, so.
So a new action.
Am I,
A new outcome, I think, yeah.
am I on the right page, Nick, that you're strategy 4?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. If you look at like the outcomes there, on the right, develop arts and culture specific business curriculum, and I think that could just go as like a 4th, or what is that, 5th bullet point there of, even encourage or encourage, yeah. Yeah, encourage those, the same, I don't know I don't remember what the language was, but.
Go ahead.
What about encourage and support? Because I feel like that way both types of roles that I hear you talking about, April, are kind of addressed. It's like the organizations need to do it, but also they need to have the funds. So then, the support has to come from somewhere.
Support.
Yeah,
Well, she was asking you a question, so you go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, so encourage and support recipients of arts and culture grant, you use all the same language there, to dedicate a certain portion of their grants for marketing and communications.
Can I chime in for 1 second?
It's not an outcome.
Y'all don't mind? All right. So, haven't had a 15-year career in marketing and communication, specifically for nonprofits with a heavy arts and culture focus. The interesting thing about it is when we think about grants, they hardly ever support marketing and communications. And the challenge with that is then we have to use whatever money that we have in order to promote the thing that the grant is funding, right? And so whatever the scale is, even if it is 3%, let's say you get a $3,000 grant, right? That's $300? Quote me on that, right? That something can be done with that, right? And I do think if we are trying to create something different, if we are trying to create and fill gaps that have, are we trying to create gaps, fill gaps that have already been in the sector, then we have to do something different. And so I want to say that I like the idea of it being a requirement, because marketing is often the last to be recognized, the first to be blamed, and the first to be cut when it comes to funding. So if we don't do something different, we'll be right back here, and we have to market, no matter what size we are. So I think including this somewhere as a requirement encourages funders as well as individuals and organizations to put their money in order to actually amplify what they're trying to do.
Charles?
So my suggestion would be to take, again, I'm still stuck on it being whether it's an outcome or not, but I completely agree what you're trying to do. It's just like wordsmithing for me, to Melody's point. And so my thought was, can't you include that language around under priority 6, strategy 2, under strategy 4 or 5, where you say develop and implement an annual arts and culture communications plan, or develop and implement an annual arts and culture plan, media plan, budget, including, allocating, 3% of grant dollars for organizations to marketing, including requiring, I'm not opposed to that, restricting dollars to marketing, but just my only thing is that I don't know if you get to what your outcome is without stating it as an action to be done. And so I think the outcome we're all wanting is better marketing and branding so that we get more people using their dollars to buy and consume and participate in art. I'm sorry, I'm gonna use the the word you don't like. But you see, like, so that's what I'm saying. I'm really with you. I just want it to be a strategy or an action clearly stated, and then you're trying to get to an outcome.
Meg?
Yeah, I agree with Charles about the outcome and the action, and I think, though, that because, as Krista said, that communications plan is really about the sector and not about individual events, that it does belong here, and I would say it belongs as part of the action number 4. Action number 4 right now says increased earned revenue by organizations and artists. First of all, like, how are you going to do that? I mean, that doesn't tell us anything about how anybody's going to do that. But this is a way you could do it, and a way you can do it, or hopefully, is by increasing their capacity to market, whether they're individuals or organizations. So something like increase earned revenue by organizations and artists through increased capacity for marketing programs and projects or products or whatever. I mean, maybe, or as a letter underneath, if we're going to do letters A, B, and C. But I think it is part of the effort to increase earned revenue is through marketing.
Yeah, I agree. I think you could say increase earned revenue by encouraging and supporting, dedication of funding for marketing and communications.
Yeah, that's great.
Objection to that?
Yeah.
Does that work for folks? Can we pause
Priya,
for a
did you
minute
get-
while I get this? Yeah, hold on.
While she's typing it in, I want to make sure we have consensus around here, and I just wrote down 4 things. 1, we all agree marketing is vitally important. Number 2, we agree it must be funded. Number 3, individuals and groups must be responsible for their marketing. And that doesn't mean they don't go out and get someone else to do it for them, but they've got to have that as a part of their DNA. And number 4 I put down is that as we put these words together, we're basically saying encourage and supporting the marketing. The thing that I want us to be cautious of when we put in the outcomes absolutes. And what I mean by that is all grants. So that tells me if I want to grant an artist supplies, they either can't take that grant or I can't give it to them because 3% is not, my budget doesn't allow me to do 3% for marketing. And I don't think that's what anybody is trying to do. So I just caution us to be careful with absolutes. And the last thing I'll say on that before we go on is that the important part of this strategic plan is not to be overly prescriptive because you don't want to hamstring the folks after us that have got to execute it. But it's important to get our intent in there. And that's why I just mentioned the 4 bullets. So you finish what you're writing, so go
No, I
ahead.
was just wondering, so I kind of paraphrased Nick from what I could remember, but does the phrase that is in gray capture the spirit of what you were saying?
Yes, the only addition I would say is by encouraging and supporting recipients of grants to dedicate a portion of their funds for marketing and community. Because I think we really want to say that, like, what we're trying to get at here is dedication of their funding for marketing and communication.
Priority 6, does that work for you?
I'm going to make one last suggestion, and this gets to what you just said, Kevin. Can it not be recipients of grants for public events and or installations That way it's qualifying it. You would market something that the public can come to. You would not market a supply or training-based like grant. Like if you get an artist support grant from the ASC or the technical support grant, you would need to market that.
Right.
But if Milan gets one to do, something with moving poets, that does need to be marketed.
Of their public events and activities.
I'm just trying to think about if,
Yeah,
I understand the intent, I just wonder if inserting the word public unintentionally does,
Yeah, you
restricts
restrict it again. I would be
Because
careful.
even if
It could be a
there's-
private event.
Yeah, even
that
if
you need to
there's
market to
not
a small group of
something
folks.
open to all the public and there's a targeted thing, you would still need to reach those intended constituents.
Exactly.
I
know we're
wonder
probably
if
done
this
with this
captures
point.
it
Oh,
well
go ahead.
enough to, sorry, go ahead, Ally.
I know we're probably done with this point, but in my mind, increasing earned revenue and marketing they should coexist. But if you don't have the business skills, the planning, the knowledge, which is what I think we were trying to get at here, you're not going to be able to market it anyway. So I feel like those are two separate things. And we're trying to just sort of shove two ideas together that are certainly complementary, but I don't think you can increase earned revenue alone by supporting marketing.
Right, can
You're not
we
going to
just,
increase revenue if you have bad marketing.
could we just make it its own action?
That's what I think.
Like the same language that you insert, that you said, Nick, but can we make it action, standalone action?
Yeah, or you could just, right before by, put including. So including, one of the ways is by encouraging and supporting dedication of marketing communications, or you can make it its own.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, so I'll just share a little, like, agita that I have around. The only thing about, I think there's an additional benefit that you all as a task force, hey guys, that you all as a task force.
I open my mouth, ask a question, and then discuss 30 minutes.
Can we have everyone's attention, please? Hello, can we have everyone's attention, please, so that we can finish this point? Thank you. That you all as a task force identified, which is that in addition to the marketing being critical to increasing revenue, earned revenue, there's that communication piece that you also referenced, I think, over the course of your conversations, that's bigger than that. It could lead to contributed revenue. It also contributes to the awareness and value of arts and culture in the community. And so I would say that's where I might hesitate to tie it just to the earned revenue comment.
That's fine with me. I'm fine with making it a separate one.
Okay.
6, are we okay? The folks in the other half of the room that weren't, no, the other folks in the other half of the room, any heartburn, you okay? Everybody else? Okay, let's move on.
We're fine, we're just trying to start the trouble, we're not going to end it.
We move to number 5. Joy?
Yeah, so in 5, we actually had, there were no additional comments that came through for 5. I'm looking here for the group. Are there any questions on 5?
I just had a question on strategy 1. I didn't understand what arts and culture support teams is. That's like a 5th one.
I can explain that.
BD?
Yeah, I can explain that just from having, because we asked that task force that question. Wait, is Matt still in the room? No, he had to go. So that, what was meant by that was that there would be kind of teams sort of in the community. So not necessarily part of the governance structure but basically folks who are committed to implementing the strategy, who would be supporting the implementation of this piece. So just to clarify, so it's not necessarily part of the governance structure that's in priority 2 or anything like that, but what they're positing is that there would be teams in community that are working to implement these actions. That's how it was explained to us, the intent. If it's not clear, we could clarify it in the language, but that's what intent was explained to us.
Yeah, if I read that, I'm like, the leaders are gonna be this arts and culture support team, and you're like, who's making that team? Who is, I mean,
Right.
that context is helpful, but yeah, some clarity on that I think would be good.
Yeah. We can. I think what I'm taking, let me know if I'm taking your comment too far, Nick. I think what I'm getting from your question is, if those teams don't exist, then who's actually going to lead this action?
That is
Yeah.
part of it, because I'm thinking they're the only leaders of this,
Right.
of this whole strategy. So, I mean, is it better to just list out, like we do in the other ones, who the ones are gonna be, who's gonna be a part of this team? I mean, if the task force feels strongly about creating these arts and culture support teams, that's fine. You just need to say what that is and how that's gonna get done, because they're the ones that are gonna be responsible for this strategy.
Who's here from Priority 5?
No, he had to go. And I'm just sharing what Matt told us a few weeks ago when we asked him the very same question. So I think the question before us now is, do we want to add anything to that column? That's what I'm hearing, right? Is there anything we'd want to add to that column? Right, to kind of
Further clarify.
to buffer, to basically beef up what's there, since there currently are not arts and culture support teams. My suggestion would be we could move arts organizations, basically the first two bullets that are under partners, we could move that into the leaders column if we think that those are logical folks to participate in this strategy. Folks okay with that? Does that make sense?
Can I ask a question on number 3 under strategy 1, which is create a free transportation program? I wonder if that's a little prescriptive. I'm not really sure how that all works, but could it be something like explore creating free transportation?
Well, I do think that we need to be bold in this. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do know that the intention behind this was actually having action. So an action would be the creation of a free transportation program. Is there a level of clarification that you would like there?
No, I just, I envision, first place, there is free transportation from certain institutions, mainly senior citizen institutions, to the arts in that. But I'm just kind of saying, okay, to whom? I mean, if we've got a small exhibit on the west side of Charlotte, is that going to be part of it? I mean, it just seems a kind of far-reaching question. If you want to be adventuresome like this, as you say, then fine. I look at that, if I were to look at that as a funder, as the city funding, I'd say, whoa, what's this going to cost? But, yeah.
So I think the idea here, as it relates to part of the strategy and transportation, has been talked about for many, many years, as long as I've been involved in the arts. Putting it here just continues to highlight it. We're not saying it's going to happen day one, it's going to be for everything. And this leaves it open enough. I mean, they didn't say create free transportation for every arts program. So it's just, it leaves it open enough, but still ambitious enough.
That's fine.
Where you can do something.
I'm just asking the question.
Yeah.
Just to brief, sorry, can I just go back to the point, because I don't think we fully tied up the point right before that, which was, I heard, Cindy, you agreed with moving those two bullets, but I didn't hear anyone else agree to that.
Oh, no, they did.
I didn't hear anything,
Yeah.
so I just
They
want to
did.
make sure.
Moving those bullets under potential partners into leader?
mean, the truth is,
Yeah, we need to go. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
but there is going to have to be a leader of, like, somebody's going to have to coordinate, like a person is going to have to coordinate all that stuff.
Which we don't have to prescribe right now, though.
Okay, Tim has an answer to that.
Well, this is what he said. It was just a theoretical idea, at which point I pressed him. And he said, we discussed the possibility of an arts liaison team that connects artists. It's basically, he said, probably 1 to 2 paid staff members of the new model.
So and also to go back to what you just said, Kevin, this is open enough that there does not, my observation, there does not have to be one person or entity leading all of this, because if you look at the specific actions, that could be the genesis of that could come from a particular organization itself working with the funder. The genesis of one of these could come from a funder who's interested in supporting that. I think the way these are phrased are intended to be like, get in where you fit in, right? If you see an opportunity to link up with this that you're interested in, you can do it.
CATS is on there, so it just kind of answers the question of like, create free transportation, and we have vehicles that go all over the city anyway, so I know, this is a very, I know it's more complicated than that, but we kind of have the answer there. I'm saying.
Exactly.
I'm reading it as that.
Yep, exactly. So can we take,
I would just caution against CATS being able to do free rides.
Yeah.
You have to do it for the whole system if you do it for anyone. So they can be a partner, but someone would have to subsidize them to be able to bring people somewhere.
Yeah.
Is all I'm saying.
which is fine, again.
That's why they're in part.
Which is fine.
That's why
They're just a partner. We don't have to be exact on that. So, I mean, I agree with you.
Okay.
This doesn't magically happen. Any other comments on 5? Are we?
Can I?
No, CATS stays where it was.
Leaving it
CATS
because
was
of
just a
what she
partner.
Can you, oh my God.
Go ahead.
Can you go to strategy 2? I just want to know the dollar, sorry, is
Wait, before you go to strategy 2, are we okay with strategy 1?
Just a point of clarification, technology companies, I'm assuming that's just meaning like ride share of any type that's inclusive of exploring partnership with private industry that services the city from a transportation perspective, be it Lyft, Uber, Bird Scooter, discount codes, yada, yada, yada.
I think that's probable, but I can't speak for Task Force 5, and I don't know that we have anyone else from Task Force 5 here.
Are you asking if it's contained in here?
Yeah, I was asking if that's what technology.
That's what I was assuming.
Technology companies meant. And if it needs to be, I guess, a little bit more.
Maybe give examples in parentheses.
Right.
Just to kind of, yeah.
To kind of bring the point home.
Our Matt Whisperer could ask if that's okay. Tim? Is that okay if sorry. Tim? 'Cause if we.
Technology companies, that is an example that rideshare companies,
Wait,
We're putting you back to
are we
work.
asking for clarification?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if we,
Or do
yeah,
we-
I guess I also don't know, do we need to start naming companies? I don't know that, I'm not sure that it makes sense to do so, but we could ask for clarification. We could pose David's question, is what I'm saying. We can ask if that's what was intended, or what was intended by that.
My understanding, I think from your question would be, if that is the intention, good. If not, maybe we need to add it. That's what I was thinking, where I was thinking he was going. But I don't know.
Okay, so here's,
Not to add such as,
My-
that was not.
we'll be fine.
okay, so noting the time, I think, thank you, Tim, for asking. I wonder if we could move on to continue going, so, thanks. Carlos, Alexis, did you wanted to look at the next strategy, is that right?
Just real quick, yeah, strategy 2, yeah. As, as we have had an experience in trying to develop a mobile, unit, I think the dollar signs should be increasing that one and probably decreasing the number one. You know, in the one that said create a directory and then they create a mobile arts and culture program. It takes, that's my suggestion, it takes not only devising, you know, what are we talking about in terms of mobile units, but if we're talking about performing arts, there's an infrastructure that will be required that will cost some money, and then, you know, programming and so on and so forth. It's just a larger amount of money than what I think we are envisioning or referring to there.
Bless you. Yep. Are
That's
folks
fine.
good with that? It's a pretty simple adjustment. Yeah. Are you okay with?
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to show you.
Move on to 4, if that's the case.
You mean priority 5?
Oh, it's here?
Priority 5 strategy.
Strategy 2.
Oh,
We got strategy 1
thanks, Joy. You're just pointing out that these
Priority
those companies are listed as partners under strategy 2. So I wonder if we should put them under strategy 1.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay?
Yep, okay.
and that takes care of 5.
Yep.
Yep. Moving on.
We're on 5 with 5, right?
Priya, so you are just gonna define
Yeah,
or
yeah.
I'm just,
eliminate?
I'm copying and pasting what we saw in the next one into here.
Oh, no, I meant you still have arts and culture support teams. Are you gonna either clarify that or remove that, or?
Joy, you were suggesting a footnote?
Yes.
Okay. Then I'm going to highlight that so that that footnote can be added later.
Okay.
Joy, can you, and Julia, can you make a note of that, please? Thank you. Okay, thanks, Nick.
Yep.
Okay, so I think we said we're moving on?
Yep.
4.
Correct? Okay. So priority 4.
There actually are also no changes.
So let's take a look at 4. Right.
I had a question about priority 4, strategy 3. Let's see.
Okay. All ears.
Is
Yep,
this
I'm
correct?
Yep, that's it right there. Okay. Okay, I'm trying to look at what. Sorry, prayer. Okay, yeah, or maybe it's just strategy. Prioritize local artists, access and affordability. I had a question of how we tie in that to inclusion and diversity, because when we just say prioritize local artists access, right? That can be anything, but if the goal is also to ensure that we are supporting, intentionally historically marginalized groups, how can we, is there a way to incorporate that in this strategy as well? Or should we include something, what did I say? Yeah, how can we ensure, and should we include something that ties it to priority 3?
That's what I was.
Okay, what's your?
So because.
That's what you're saying.
I guess my question is, right, like, we say prioritize local artists, yes. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna be inclusive too, right, or diverse in who is prioritized. So how can we be intentional about that in this particular strategy, I guess is my question. I don't necessarily have an answer to it, but I'm just posing that.
Let me see if I can rephrase what you're saying. Is you're basically saying all the things that we talk about in priority 3, will it be permeated, I don't know why I use that word, throughout the other priorities, specifically priority 4?
Yes, perfect, thank you.
Which is a good question.
That is a good question. I mean,
Do we have priority
my
4
initial,
folks here?
yeah, I don't know. Priority 4, Joanne. So you're co-chair, sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, but that's because you're co-chair of this task force.
You need a microphone?
From what I'm listening to, I feel like
You need a microphone.
I do.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Ah, there you go.
Now we can hear you.
Okay. I think when we were looking at that, I think this priority is not meant to be exclusive, but inclusive, just prioritizing the local artists, not leaving everyone else out, but making sure that our local artists have the opportunity, have the first opportunity to be able to engage in our programs. So I don't think it's exclusive. I think it's very inclusive, just with the focus being on, hey, we want everyone to be able to enjoy this, but our local artists should not be left out. We need to make sure we serve our community. We prioritize our community.
Right.
Does strategy 3 not, is that not an umbrella that, you know?
That's what I thought.
Goes up under that? I mean, because we've said across the board we want equity.
Okay, I just was posing a question. I wasn't, you know.
It's a very good question. And I
Just
think
'cause
the
it
answer.
just stood out to me, that's all. It really just stood out to me. And I think what really sparked it was a situation that I saw online too, where an organization was really excited about posting how they prioritize local artists, but it was 2 white local artists. And then someone chimed in and was like, well, one's a Latina, whatever. It was a whole big thing. Whatever, I just was observing it. Right. Oh, yes, that's true. So, okay. All right. Thank you.
That was a good one.
Can
Any
I
other?
just say, again, I think when we say local artists, we are very intentionally inclusive about all of our local artists. So if that is the intention of it, just to make sure we serve local.
As far as the leaders or potential partners, I don't see any theater on here.
Where's that voice coming
You don't see theater on this
We're talking about priority 4, strategy 1, is that right? Leaders?
strategy 3 is what we're on.
Strategy 3.
Strategy 3.
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad. But,
So,
but actually, I
wait, can we,
Yeah.
if we're moving from, but I don't want to move from this strategy until if everyone's comfortable. Like Milan, if you want to move to the next
So-
strategy, can I just make sure we are comfortable with this strategy?
yeah, sorry.
Thank
So
you.
on-
No, that's okay.
On priority 1, strategy 3, then what I'm hearing from Melody, so would we,
Priority 4,
Yeah.
not priority 1.
Priority 4.
Priority 4.
priority 4, strategy 3?
Oh, okay, you said priority 1.
1.
I'm so sorry.
We're like, whoa.
I want to talk about what we're talking about right now. And all I wanted to say was, would we take the auditing body, whatever we want to call it, and put it as a partner or leader inside of this one, therefore, and then make to, some sort of reference that, I was trying to think if you could put a little star reference, C, priority number 3, as it relates to this or something like that, but if you have that body.
Probably the cleanest way, I think, is to have the auditing body as a partner in that.
Well, and to maybe add to that, yes, auditing body as a partner, and then I think there's also the governance structure that has the advisory groups that also focus on making sure that priority 3 happens. So I don't know if we would want to put that as a partner or a leader for
Sure.
this. So that because both things are part of priority 3?
Yes.
So, okay. Are folks comfortable with that? Just add those in the 2 columns?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. Let me do that while we're flipping to so Milan, we're flipping to strategy 1, is that correct?
Well, hold on, before we do that, can we actually, we talked about churches, that we were going to use houses of worship to be more inclusive of religion.
All right, I think we said houses of faith, is that right?
Instead of
Oh, local
churches.
chur- Oh, houses, yeah, I see. Change that.
My recollection from, I think this is a versioning thing, yeah.
Yeah. Houses of faith.
Would it be also between, see, potential partners, would that also be houses of faith too? Instead of local churches, or
Yes.
in addition? Okay,
Any place where you see churches, I think is supposed to be houses of faith.
okay.
So we can do a word search on that.
Sorry, can you repeat that, please, Kevin, because I was making.
Anywhere it says churches should say houses of faith.
Okay. Joy, could you make that note, please? Okay, and I'm highlighting this.
Okay, we're moving, Milan, go ahead.
Before we move on for priority 4, are we still on priority 4?
We're still on priority 4.
Okay. A couple of things. Priya, I don't know if you got the written comments that I submitted today.
No, I was in a meeting till I came to this meeting,
That's
so,
fine.
Joy has seen them.
It may,
So.
a couple of the things, I'm not talking about any of the little minor things, but the ones that, where I suggested language changes, it might be helpful to just pull it up, Joy. I don't know if you want to pull it up. Because, well, so priority number 4, I think we need to reword the outcomes. This will help, like, what are we saying this will help? My suggestion to make it sound like an outcome was to say prioritized art spaces and facilities for local artists, blah, 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 blah. So basically.
Which strategy are you on?
This one.
Number right here, 3.
It's on, it's priority 4, strategy.
Yep, so it's the same one, if you guys look up at this screen, and I'm just highlighting in gray, right, the section, the phrase that Nick is talking about, and I
changed
changed
2
it.
to 4. So in the very beginning there, so prioritize art spaces and facilities for local artists.
Oh, okay.
It makes it more of an outcome. That was for that, and then same thing for strategy number 2.
What I worry about.
This will give, so I just suggested taking that and just starting it at affordable.
Yep.
So affordable and respectable spaces.
For artists to display, or for?
No,
Or
to
just to
display
display.
and curate artistic work. So change there to artistic, so you're saying who it is that you're talking about, that would directly engage artists. So take out them and make it artists.
Okay, is everyone okay with the phrase as it now stands? Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And then is on number 1, I think this is just a typo, but I think we meant number 2 there to secure lots and land to develop additional spaces throughout the county, right? I don't think we want to go the whole country.
I mean, don't we want to raise the profile of Charlotte Mecklenburg nationally?
This has been a world domination.
Oh, I know, it's like,
We said be bold, so.
hate to like be a
Thank
nitpick for
you.
words, but the
Thank
lawyer in
you.
me is coming
Yeah.
out, you know.
Okay.
Okay, I
Mi-
think,
Yeah,
can we go to
Milan.
Milan? Yeah.
Milan, you had something in priority 4?
Yes, just that the leaders and potential partners, they're all, there's no theater in theater groups or anything like that involved or listed, really.
No grassroots schools. All big entities.
Okay, shall we add? I know, well, yeah, and I think let's see. Joanne, you can confirm or correct this. I think this list, you guys were thinking of folks that currently have space. So, meaning existing spaces, and so should we, Milan, are you saying let's add some existing theater spaces?
No, just people who are, I know what the intention is, and that's not what the problem is. It's just when we are listing leaders and potential partners, I know that folks from the theater, local theater, are going to be like, where are we in here?
You know, VAPA Center's got multiple, you got at least 2 theater companies inside VAPA.
Right. I understand what you're saying, though. You want to.
Microphone.
Oh, sorry. I sound really loud to me. I do understand what she's saying, and maybe that is something we can kind of add in there, because you're saying that you need organizations to partner with that have space that can accommodate, right? That can accommodate bringing in other theater groups or supporting other theater groups?
Well, both, people who already have space and people who don't have space, but it's just a matter of like having intentionally writing in there, you know, that theater is a thing.
Yeah, is this okay? I've also, I figure if, while we're noticing theater is missing, so was dance. And we also have dance spaces in addition to, I know there are other dance organizations that have spaces too. So if we're adding, do these 2 bullet points that are new, do they capture the thought? So I heard theater and dance organizations is one, and then I also added performance spaces because I heard that over here as well.
No.
Does that capture it? Okay, are folks
Do we need
comfortable with that?
music in there too, if we're gonna have, I mean, like we've got the Music Factory and Avid Exchange and.
Performing arts organizations.
Yeah, that would encompass a lot of folks from small to medium to large.
How about and
Shouldn't
spaces?
Blumenthal be there too?
Right, and it would be, that would be under performing arts organization.
I think, we can put.
There's so many.
We can put Blumenthal, because that is obviously one of the big major ones, and it does, meaning it is included in this last bullet, but I also wonder if it makes sense to call it out specifically, because it does appear in one of the other leaders columns for this priority.
I would call it out, yes.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
so.
yeah, definitely.
The intention is there, I'm surprised the words not.
Folks good with that? Does these 2 additions?
Everybody okay?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else on 4?
So going back to what Melody was saying, so what was the decision about ensuring that, the historically marginalized communities?
We did 2 separate things.
Okay.
One, we added the auditing body as a potential partner, and we also, I'm sorry, I cannot.
Sorry, let me make it
No
bigger.
way.
And also, so in both columns, and actually I should have said the first part was, a leader is the new governance structure, and then added in a partner, the equity auditing body from priority 3 as a partner. So that ensures that there is oversight.
Is that?
It's linkage, yeah.
Okay, 4, good?
4, any other? Let's move on to 3.
And with 3, we actually had, there was, so in 3, there was a change that was adding, Boom to the list of to potential partners. So, in.
Priority 3.
In priority 3.
Strategy 1.
In priority 3, strategy 2, strategy 3, and strategy 4. We've added Boom into the partners group. That's the first, well, the main change, the other change was the round table list. Okay, that is any other questions around priority number 3?
wasn't sure if that was like supposed to be like an action item or like some kind of outcome or something. Yeah.
Yeah, right, maybe we just leave it as auditing body, and I think the description around it, given how we've addressed some other things, could be addressed as a footnote on this page where the definition appears. Does that work for this task force?
Yeah.
So basically up here, I think we could put it up here where auditing body first appears in the strategy statement.
Okay.
And then we could have the number of the footnote, and then we could add the explanation here, the definition. Does that work for folks? Okay.
You good with that?
Okay, can you guys, I don't want to make that edit right now, but if you can just note that we're going to do that. That's, I will defer to the task force to share with us, to answer that question.
Like in strategy 4.
Can you repeat the question?
I was just curious about how the list came about and who can be included, or like is the Black Market, Hugh House, like is it based, Art Pop, is it based on, do they provide funding or they're accepting funding for strategy 4?
So are you asking if other folks could be put in there? So basically, we went for, so we're on strategy, priority 3, strategy 1.
Strategy,
And-
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, strategy 4.
Sorry. Okay. And what was your question? Why are they included? Why are these?
Yeah, like who, or can we add more? Because I'm not.
Sure.
Yeah, no, this is no way a comprehensive list.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah, Boom wasn't even there before.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, we kind of started with groups which already have pretty diverse, diverse programming or membership or, server diverse community. But yeah, this is no way comprehensive list, but yeah. But the idea is to partner with organizations already doing the work.
Yeah, do you have a few groups you
So-
want to add?
What?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Wait,
Well,
can we pause, please? So,
Let's say,
What?
and other
yeah,
appropriate groups.
maybe I would suggest along those lines, it's one bullet that is grassroots arts and culture organizations, and in parenthesis, if there are some representative organizations that are on this list and others, because we get into a very tricky space. There's no way we could possibly name all the organizations, but we are trying, I think,
Right.
what I get a sense of is that you're trying to give a flavor, but we can't
Which I totally
provide.
understand, but
Yeah.
then, I don't want to be like in 5 years, like, well, you guys were not in that original list. Like, we've always
Right.
been curious, like, how did the Thrive organizations, right, get in? And so I'm bringing it up. I
Yeah.
represent the Guild of Charlotte Artists, our Namaste Artist Group, and we're kind of grassroots, we're encompassing, we're local, we've been around, so
Yeah.
that's why I'm bringing it up,
Yeah.
so.
So if we could do,
If you see that bullet, arts and culture consultants, we can say grassroots organizations and others right there to add included to
Right.
it.
Yep.
how do you folks feel about that? So Melody, you're saying, yeah, put that grassroots organizations and
others.
remove the specifics, right? That's what
Yes.
I'm suggesting.
I still want my name up there.
I think you should.
It can be added, but
I think we'll have the same thing happen is anyone who's with another group would read this and be like, why aren't we in there?
They would say, why am I an and other?
We had this happen,
If you
for those
name-
of you who recall.
If you name, you got to name everybody.
I think it's
And I think you'd be better off just to say what you said. But priority
But if you're
3,
gonna add names,
is that okay?
add-
Priority
and
3?
Don't put names. Oh, okay, okay.
No, we're waiting. Hold on a second. Priority 3 is caucusing.
We're strategizing.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
So, yeah, no, I think that's a great point, but, I think in our strategy 3, what you're suggesting is to always kind of do a survey of the ecosystem and make sure that, we are always discovering and including organizations that have been left out. So one of the main things we are proposing is to make sure that, it's not the same few people who always gets included.
Agreed.
That's exactly what we're saying.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're in
So that-
agreement instead of
My point
having
is that
it.
I think that is one of our priorities, or one of our strategies already. I mean, I think it's strategy 3, right? I'm forgetting the numbers.
Because essentially, what it sounds like, I think you're affirming is
Yes.
that,
Yeah.
but is as opposed to naming individual groups, because that would kind of entomb the same names of organizations.
Right.
So by putting the big generalized grouping, not big, but, the generalized grouping, that way, there is always the opportunity to evolve.
Right. Yeah, I think, that's something we talked about. There should be a constant process of finding out who is there and make sure they are included.
I'm agreeing with all that, but like you said, when you say names, then you see like, why isn't my name? Why can't I be on that list too?
Well, I mean, throughout this document, we've listed organizations. So,
Yeah, I think it's.
None of these lists are meant to be.
exhaustive.
They're not, yeah.
Because they're not.
We can say that, but throughout this document, we've listed organizations as examples. We've given names, so I don't necessarily think we need to pull away from that, but
Yeah,
maybe that's an
a very good point.
added.
You either do it all or none.
That's right.
Yeah.
All in, yeah.
So, I mean, if we've got it in 5 other places, we'd either remove it from all those places or, so let's go with this, keep the list and make sure we say this is an examples versus, and we need to do that throughout the document.
Well, I don't know about, so Kevin, I think the amendment to that is they're specific, none of the other lists are this long in terms of specific organizations. So it's true that we have named specific organizations throughout the document, but a lot of those are, literally, those organizations are.
Well, as long as we're sure that's it,
Doing those.
then that's fine.
3, 4, 5.
Yeah, I agree. This is probably where we have the most number of
Yeah,
organizations.
yeah.
Like we've listed McCall House, but McCall Center.
I mean,
Can I ask a quick question, just a clarification question? So is the intent, these are organizations that we can point to that are doing some of this work? Is that what the potential partners?
Yes.
Okay.
That was why we listed these specific
Got it,
groups.
okay, that's helpful.
Okay, that's a little different, yeah.
But they're also, it's doing, okay. So I think that so where have we arrived, just to look at the group number 3, where do you want us to land with the language and the listing?
I mean, let's add your group, or some of the groups. And then add also a footnote that says, and this is not like this will,
Not
like,
an exhaustive list.
Yeah.
Not intended to be an exhaustive list.
Yeah.
Other
Of
groups.
partners that can help us execute on this strategy.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
So we're throwing
will
names.
be
If you put your name up there, it's to help on executing this strategy.
The whole document too is suggestions. We've put people down as leaders and partners without asking them. So all of this is a suggestion, but it has to have that necessary meat on the bone, because if we just said people will lead, the next question is who are those people? So
And this way we're giving examples. So I think we're fine. Are we okay with that in strategy 3?
But the 2 groups, the Guild of Charlotte Artists and the Namaste Artists. CLC.
So does that mean we,
Sounds like it would be added everywhere Boom was added, right? I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense if we're adding.
Yeah.
so we're okay?
Make sure everyone's on the same page about that.
Would feel better.
Going once, going twice, we're okay? Anything else on strategy 3?
I think you're right with that.
Make that table bigger.
What are the 2?
I'm sorry,
What are the
priority
2
3.
groups I'm adding?
You're adding Namaste Arts
Namaste Artists CLT, and the Guild of Charlotte Artists.
Last thing, why are City of Charlotte and the county, I should have noticed this before, why are they leaders and partners?
We can delete them from partners.
Yeah, I think that's gonna help that list.
City of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County, they're showing up in both places. Most of the document really, an organization needs to only be in one column or the other. They don't need to appear in both leaders and partners.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right, so I would suggest if the group is okay, we can remove them from partners and leave them in leaders, because this is about a growth fund.
Yeah.
Like a funder, the funders.
Sure.
Any other questions with priority 3? Priority 2.
Priority 2, other than typos, we did not have, oh, yes, there is there was an error, which was a strategy that actually it is priority number 2, strategy number 3. It is listed in the above, in chapter 5, but it was deleted from when we are accepting from the implementation plan. So you see it in front of you. This is strategy number 3, shift the decision-making for funding and the direction of the arts sector to be more inclusive and transparent. So that's strategy number 3.
Joy,
And if I
can I
remember-
add to that?
It's not on there. That's-
Right, it's
yeah.
not on that one, yeah. So this is when we noticed that in the last version, when we were finalizing things, we accidentally deleted this. But so, to refresh everyone's memory, this was agreed upon at the end of the August 22nd steering group meeting. The steering group agreed to move this strategy, which had been previously under the equitable support priority, to move it under priority 2, to create that stronger link between priority 2 and the equity activities.
Yep, I remember that.
I remember.
Yep.
Is everybody clear on what it's just, it got dropped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our fault, sorry.
Go right ahead.
Strategy number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th outcome bullet. I have no idea what that is trying to say. Maybe you can help me with that. Yeah, there you go. So that one, shorter.
This one?
Shorter ramp up period to new model through leveraging existing entities, and I'm already lost. I don't understand what that outcome is meant to.
So that means that because the model is leveraging existing entities, it will take less time to establish that.
Yeah, I think it was just simple. Since the whole idea here is that this would be a new entity, that we would utilize existing skills and knowledge to make sure the ramp-up period wouldn't take forever.
It's this piece right here, just if we're looking at this refers to,
The new governance structure, right?
exactly, and this relates to, if you can see, action number 2 here, the one that's in gray now.
Right.
Yeah, so this is referring to the working group of entities, and that's what where it says leveraging existing entities and filling gaps as needed, that's what that's referring to. So if we look at it's this part, working group.
I guess I'm not understanding the shorter ramp-up period. What is that?
It's a shorter establishment, so, ramp up is the time between now and having this organization operational. So.
Having the structure operational.
Sorry, and the structure operational, so it's a shorter establishment period as previously said. So the wording is
Not
less
clear.
lead time.
Yeah, exactly. Less lead time. Does that?
Yeah, look, if it's just me, that's fine. I'm not understanding what that outcome is. Like, if you're like, we're trying to do this, we're trying to shorten the transition from current structure of funding through leveraging existing entities and filling gaps.
That captures it. Right, Kevin? Yeah, can you say that again? Please. I think you changed the first phrase. You said shorten transition period or something?
Shorten, I was just, yeah. Oh, shorten transition to new funding structure or governance?
It's just not for, yeah, it's separate, it's governance, yeah.
Governance structure.
Yeah, that would,
Team 2, do you have
would
any
be
heartburn with that? Is that
consistent,
fine?
By working with existing entities, yeah,
Yeah.
that's,
Does that sound better to you?
yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
are you working with?
Okay. What else do we have?
And filling gaps.
I just leave out filling gaps.
Take out
Yeah, just
Well,
to existing
I
entities.
think, well, I think just to go back to I think the reason the task force said that, and I think, I'm going back to, I think something, Bob, that you had mentioned in the task force conversations is, I think that gets to this piece about the leader and support staff, which were like some of the gaps. I'm just saying, I think that's why the task force included that language, but if you want to
I don't
keep
think
it,
we,
Well, it says it
Bob
right
and Dave
at
should-
the
To
right
fill
there.
gaps
Use
as
existing
needed is what
entities
Tim
and
just
networks.
said.
yeah,
There it is.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
does it? Okay.
To fill, instead of and filling, to fill gaps as needed.
and to fill? Well,
No,
it's
just to
two
fill.
separate things. It's two separate ideas, going back to the task
Oh,
force
it is. Okay.
conversations. Yeah, filling gaps is separate, like, because it's working with existing entities, and then if there are gaps, filling those gaps. So whatever captures that.
Okay, that's fine. I thought you were working with existing entities to fill the gaps, but that's not what you're doing.
That's not what the intent was, yeah.
Okay.
Anything else on?
Yeah. On strategy 2 in number 2 and 3, I thought, and again, I missed a meeting, so maybe it got changed back. We had said that the word centering was not what we wanted.
The word what?
Centering,
Where is that word?
2 and 3, at the end.
So
Wait,
we're
what was the-
priority 2, strategy 2,
Right,
which bullet? 2 and 3?
2 and 3.
Centering. It's, if you look up here, it's in gray where my cursor is, right here. And then it's here as well.
Centering equity.
We can change the word. Do you remember
We had
what the word
conversation, I'm trying to
was?
remember what it was now.
Was this in the maybe August 22nd meeting?
No, because I wasn't here for that one. That's why it's possible that the task force decided to go back. But I think the discussion was that that was too strong. It kind of implied that that was the be-all, end-all. And so I think that there ought to be a word that definitely says equity's got to be part of the consideration, but it shouldn't imply that that's at the center of the universe.
But isn't,
So, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I'm trying to remember.
I think our group is very much wanting that we center. It is about, I mean, maybe I'm suggesting, I mean, you know, this is, again, this is the vision and the boldness that we want to express, right? And it's not just a suggestion like, hey, maybe if we could include it, but it is, in our eyes, front and center for a sustainable plan for the next 10 to 20 years. And so I don't know. I mean, like the rest of the folks out there, our group doesn't see it too strong. Like it's not like a strong, like we're not overbearing. So,
Isn't
I would
that
just-
covered in priority 3?
sorry, say that again.
Is it not covered in in priority 3?
Mm-hmm.
And we have a whole priority around this. So I'm asking that question.
So I think the issue is you don't have to, I mean, if it's too bold here, it's too bold for 3. So I kind of think we already have 3 and we're all committed to it. So saying centering here is not, I mean, I think we leave it in.
Yeah, and also, I
I don't agree with you, but I think that I'm in the minority, so I don't want to,
So, and also, there are several things we could not cover in priority 3, like affordable spaces, for example, which is why we want that, make sure that was mentioned. So I don't think, that equity should be part of every priority. It cannot be limited to.
nobody's saying it shouldn't be part of it. We're saying, should it be the center of what we're going to do?
Quick answer, yes.
Okay, well, you and I
Absolutely.
disagree respectfully.
So how do we ensure that we're not back here in 10, 15 years if we're not centering
3 pages.
equity?
We've got 3 pages of priority 3, including a commission that, if I read this correctly, is going to audit all of these arts organizations for equity. Okay? So I think you've got it covered, up, down, and sideways in that regard.
So then what is yes, okay, sort of. So then what is the issue with it being someplace else if we've already have it covered?
I'm not arguing about the word equity. I'm arguing about
the word centering.
The word centering.
So I'm trying to go back because I remember the discussion we had. And I thought and David, I don't know if you can help me on this. I thought we left centering in there and also wanted to add the footnote about number 3, because neither one of those were in there, I thought, in the beginning. Now, someone got to help. David, I don't know if you remember.
I honestly can't recall, because this was also, I think that conversation happened before we came into the August meeting.
Yeah, I
That was
think
like
that's
just a
correct.
closed group committee conversation, but I can't remember the complete contents of it.
The C priority, I think that this is where the linkages really started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And really got stronger. In my flawed recollection, this is what I'm remembering.
Yeah. And Bob, to your point, I don't think centering, at least from what I remember, centering didn't make it. We were trying to make sure equity was a part of this, and that's why we tied it into 3. And using the word centering didn't make it
I feel like
overpowering. It was just making sure that we included that as a part of what we were doing.
Well,
Was
as I
it-
remember, the way that came about is Priya gave us a draft, and it was her word. And that when we discussed it, she said, well, I don't feel strongly about the word. And we just discussed going in another direction. Again, I want equity there. I don't want anybody to mistake that, okay? But you can read that as saying, hey, we really care more about the distribution using however you want to define equity than we do about making sure that the ecosystem, which includes big organizations, is healthy. And I don't think that's what we mean.
But,
Bob,
equity
I
doesn't
don't
mean
think-
favoring one people or the other. It's the opposite of that.
I'm sorry?
Equity doesn't mean that you're tipping the scales. It's making sure that that doesn't happen. So,
Right.
any proper system should be
Well,
centered on equity.
Again, equity is one of those charged words, but I'm not arguing about the equity word. I just think centering is too strong. And honestly, if I'm in the minority, go for it. I mean, I'm not going to die on the
I'm trying to go back to asking Task Force 2, going back to the conversation you're talking about, David and Bob. I'm thinking, was it that we added in diversity and inclusion? Is that ringing a bell? I remember there being some conversation where I think, we may have talked about diversity, equity, inclusion. Did we expand the phrase? Is that what happened there? I'm just also trying to recollect.
I don't remember, because it was toward the end of the meeting, and we were trying to get the structure together. But again, I don't want to spend a lot of time. We're already over. I don't want to spend a lot of time. If I'm the only person who feels that way, let's go forward, go to one.
Really quickly, you might not be, and they're just not saying anything, but centering only shows up twice throughout this entire 30, 40-something page document, right? And so I think it's important that it sets the tone. This is priority 1, is that correct? Priority 2.
Yeah.
It sets the tone because, yes, equity, the word equity can be very uncomfortable for people, right? And that's okay. And that's okay. I think that removing centering, it changes the context of how bold we're trying to be, how much we are trying to shift things, how much we want to ensure and coordinate ongoing delivery of equitable, accessible, and inclusive funding. So I'm not sure if removing centering changes anything per se, but I also don't think that it adds, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I don't know. I think that what I would say in my work is let's sit with it being uncomfortable and understand and figure out why it's uncomfortable for us.
And if I can add
Well,
one
but
quick
also,
thing.
the whole,
I think the point Bob's trying to make is if that's all we care about, there's more that we care about. And we care about the entire system of funding arts. That's the way I interpret what Bob's saying.
But that doesn't exclude that.
Doesn't exclude anything.
but isn't this strategy about, it's.
Or does centering, taking out centering exclude anything either? I mean,
For
again,
me, I think it's a
matter
North
of
Star.
How do people see that word, okay?
Okay,
How do people see the word? So just share.
so let's go to Ally because she's been.
I was just going to say, I think of, when we're thinking of centering equity, I think that's the North Star. That is how we want to think about this framework, and in my opinion, it's not either or, it's both and by really thinking about how we center equity and lean into that, we can make this ecosystem even stronger in the future, especially when it relies on funding and capacity building.
It depends how it gets used.
Also, are we saying equity and are we saying parentheses racial? Like, that's the other thing. Like, are we not saying the word because?
No,
So it's just- okay, just
It's
checking.
not what I'm saying.
I'm also a little bit confused. So isn't this strategy all about, the ensure and coordinate ongoing delivery of equitable, accessible, and inclusive funding? So if that's not mentioned in this particular strategy, I thought that was the whole point of this particular one, right?
Well-
Strategy 2.
Okay. This argument isn't going anywhere. Yeah, I'm going to leave it alone. I am going to leave it
When
alone.
you center something, that means it's your focus. So I think the discussion here is, the focus is arts. The focus, of course, equity is all over. But when we use the word center, it basically focuses, that is your primary focus, is how the translation is. So as long as we leave the equity in there and then not use the word center, that means everything is centered around it. And I think that is where the misconceptions of the word will be used. So I think we can always find an alternative word, and that's something that we can explore. But the question is not about equity, because it is always there. It is just centering. That means our entire focus is a center. So I think that's where the discussion.
Okay. I think you just actually came up with, do you mind repeating one more time what you just said?
What I was saying is, instead of saying center, our goal is to focus on equity. When you center it, that means everything else is working around it.
focus on it, that
That's
means
good.
you're giving priority to it. And I think it's just the language, the word we are using that is misinterpreting what we all would like to see, that is equity. To ensure that everything we do, every step we take, every strategy, everything that we are developing, to ensure that that equity is definitely in our minds and do not ignore it. So we need to focus on equity, but not necessarily center around it.
So would you say changing I'm just asking for clarity, instead of saying centering equity, it's focus, with a focus on equity?
Thank you. You're much more articulate than I am.
Okay with that, but I was fine.
But we're gonna have to do a thumbs up on this.
Yeah, well,
I think there's a lot of different minds, and we're getting into.
Can we say an equity framework?
I don't think that's defined anywhere, and then we'd
Okay.
kind of have to.
Just trying to think of alternatives.
Prioritize.
I think there'd have to
Okay,
be.
so.
What about prioritize?
I can deal with that.
So task force number 2,
You're emphasizing on
I like centering too.
prioritizing.
So let me go over to my group.
task force number 2.
I'm just walking on the two.
It's not our, it's not our task force. It's not our task force.
The caucus.
I'm fine with that. That's great, as far as I'm concerned, but I'm going to plead there to that.
Well, we got it. That's what we.
I don't know this inside out.
Okay, so let me get your attention again from, we were caucusing like occurred over there. So we're fine with the word focus, with a focus on equity versus the word center. And the thinking, at least my thinking, I think, Susan, I think there, with the word center, I see multiple definitions of that around here, which I don't think will create the clarity and the importance of equity. I think the word focus is a much clearer word in terms of the intention that we're trying to do. I'm concerned that the word center would not give it the importance that we were trying to give it when we talked about this. I think the word focus gives us more clarity, or at least gives me more clarity in terms of it. So that's where we stand.
So I'm gonna ask the group for how many people can go with a focus, is that what you said?
Yes.
With a focus on equity in that spot. If you can live with that, raise your hand.
Versus centering, right?
Okay. Are you counting?
Yeah, I have 11.
Focus on prioritizing.
I have 11, yeah. First,
Okay.
yeah. Out of-
Those who can't live with it? Okay. So we're gonna go
So
to.
I really quickly, I just want to say, the reason why I can't, and maybe we change it to centering, someone did mention prioritize. Focus does not give it priority. It just says it's there. I don't feel like it gives the push that it's truly needed for equity.
Okay, so let's.
I have a
I'm
proposition.
working with the group again, because we have no problem with the word prioritize either. I'm fine with that.
What's your proposal?
Can we get,
Second compromise.
can we get a consensus on the word prioritize?
It is.
Or, okay, I'm not,
I'm fine
where's the
with
word?
that. I can deal with that.
Where is it? I'm trying to, I want to get the exact wording, so it's.
Centering right here, so.
It's
Yeah.
prioritizing equity.
Yeah, prioritizing equity.
I'm okay with that, yeah.
So we're,
Okay, so we're gonna do that, we're gonna try.
do it
to
one more
again.
time. Question?
Well, first, let's ask this.
Okay.
So the folks that are not comfortable with focus,
One conversation.
does prioritizing change how you feel?
It's something I can accept.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're gonna have more votes on that. Can everybody who's in for prioritize, raise their hand? Ooh, I don't know, we're losing some people.
Wait,
wait, I'm
I
sorry.
think I got 12.
Keep your hands up, keep your hands up.
I got 12 or 13.
I didn't get.
12 or 13.
13.
Yeah, something like 12 or
Okay, so we have
13.
more people on this one.
Okay, wait a minute.
Let's do it
Everybody.
again. Yeah.
What do you want to say?
No. Okay, can we do that again, please?
Everybody, just one more time, let's just raise your hands high, because we didn't quite actually see.
There's some moving around of hands.
Three. We're voting on the prioritize.
Instead of
Prioritizing equity.
Yeah, instead of centering, it would say prioritizing. Prioritizing equity.
So we're supposed to raise our hand there, so everybody can
Just-
see it.
Adjust the sentence, because we're talking about the priority.
Keep your hand up, keep your hand up, keep your hand up, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I can't tell I cannot hear Aline.
I'm just saying, with the way the sentence is constructed with priorities in the phrase right before, we're saying prioritizing, doesn't make sense to me. Can we just say aligned with the arts and culture plan instead of aligned with the priorities of the arts and culture plan, and then say prioritizing equity?
Right.
Yeah, she was just saying.
What's the difference? You guys get the wordsmithing. We're all okay on, we've got enough votes on prioritizing.
Word priorities.
Okay, so here's where, so let's talk about where we are a minute, because I see people starting to walk out the door.
Yeah.
We were hoping we would finish this tonight, but I understand that people need to. So maybe we should ask the question, Joy, about 1 and see how much conversation we think we need to have on 1. Are we done with 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's okay on 2? Okay. Let's see what we need on 1, because if we need a lot of time, we're gonna have to
Punt.
punt and meet again.
No, this is 2.
Yeah,
We're done with 2.
More to go.
No,
Yeah,
we're
no,
done
we know
with
that.
2.
You didn't hear what she said.
We asked you to tell us what's
What's
on 1.
Oh, okay. On 1, sorry, I was trying to make a change.
Trying to get this.
Okay. So on 1, we actually did not receive any substantive changes. The changes were around kind of spellings and moving acronyms.
Okay, so let me ask you before people start leaving, because we really would like to vote on this tonight. Anybody have anything that gives them heartburn on 1? I'm hearing an absence of anything that bothers folks. So can we go forward on 1 as it stands? Is everybody okay with that? Thumbs up? Okay.
Okay.
So now, we'd like to have a motion to support this plan with the steering committee here, but the advisory board has to be the ones that do the vote. So I'm going to need every advisory board member to vote on this. Does anybody on the steering committee have any other input? Because then the advisory board does have to vote to make this real. Okay, can I have a motion?
I move that we approve the plan.
Second? Good. Okay, all in favor?
You gotta,
You got to put your hands up, advisory board members, please.
And Janine, could you go ahead and do names?
We're not voting members. Are you?
Just for clarity for the steering committee folks, is that since we're a quasi-government body, the actual advisory board has to vote. And so we're not being rude, we're just kind of trying to go through this process versus, Julia will kick us out if we don't do this.
Okay. So I want to thank everybody. This has been a monumental evening.
Yes.
It's not over. We will be meeting again.
Thank you.
We've got
Yes.
to start saying how we're going to start implementation, and we still have infusion funds left to
See you, Doug.
allocate. So thank you, particularly the steering committee.
Yes.
Thank you, all of you.
And just, you're going to throw up the chart real quick on what's next, I think?
Yes,
As people are getting ready to get up and leave. But again, I also want to thank you and understand that this is really not the end, it's more the beginning. There's a lot of work to be done. So go through that real quick.
Yep, so next, after today, as Cindy was saying, with the LORD team, we will finish, we'll obviously implement those things that we just agreed to today, the ones that still remain. Doing graphic design, creating that executive summary, which will be similar to what we did for the State of Culture report, the short version, that's kind of easier to digest. And then the exact timing of then presenting this to council is a little bit TBD. We're working with the manager on what that timing is, but we anticipate that it will likely happen soon in October. We just don't know the exact dates. When we know, we will be back in touch, but at this moment, we don't have the exact timing. Anything else you would add to that, Julia, in terms of next steps? No.
Any questions?
So really quickly on the agenda, the date is wrong. It says October 19th, but it's October 17th, Tuesday, October 17th.
Oh, sorry about that. Thank you. It is October 17th. Yeah, sorry. This is on the printout of when the next our advisory board meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
October 17th.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, very much.
Thank you. The meeting is
Yes,
adjourned.
thank you.
All right, Priya.
Take food. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye, Julia.
You've got notes.
Bye-bye, thank you.
You've got notes? Yes. Okay. And thank you.
Thank you. Just some clarity on one thing is, once you have a quorum, you always have a quorum. So even though people left, it didn't matter.
Well, you had 8
But
people.
for the vote.
Huh?
But for the vote.
That's what I mean for the vote.
Oh,
Once you have
okay.
a quorum,
Yeah.
you have a quorum throughout the meeting, even though people leave.
yeah.
So whatever the vote is, the vote is.
The vote is, okay, got
And
it.
actually,
Yeah.
the people that left, they're counted as a yes.
Oh, really? Okay, well, I knew that if you don't vote, you're a yes, but I didn't realize that if
That
you
is a
leave,
theory.
you're then,
Because
oh,
we were
okay.
concerned.
Yeah. I know, she
But no
texted
one
me.
asked.
I will,
You need to
I
run to
don't,
the,
I
are
do,
you
but
gonna take your flight?
well, I'll make some flight. There's an
Yeah.
American airline flight. I was highlighting the changes as much because I think you're working on a local version.
It is.
So, anyway, yeah.
Wait, what are you saying? You're worried about some of those things that weren't there that we knew we had changed earlier? Yeah. I don't know why.
So anyway, so when
Because
I'm.
we have to compare it to what, because were
So
those
when I'm-
changes not on those printouts either?
Correct. So I don't know, so that's
Because
actually
they're-
driving me a little bit
I
crazy.
know, because like there was a version of that. We all saw those,
Yes.
that language in there before we distributed everything in writing.
Correct. So what I'm struggling with is now that we have finally gotten to the point of thumbs up.
Yeah.
I am not in a space where I tried to highlight, so even if we got it.
I know, and I didn't have track changes on, and I didn't want to like start doing it, right? But so now,
yeah.
it's not even like, I think we have to use this version.
Yeah, for sure.
But then
For
go back
sure, we're
to
gonna
some-
have to use
Yeah,
that
we have to use
version.
this version, not what's on SharePoint,
No,
right?
but for example, there's one thing that with that whole priority 6 language that we moved and then encouraged and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I think you did it appropriately where you added a new strategy.
Yeah, action.
An action, sorry, I keep saying that, action. I think you did that appropriately, but anyway, we'll talk.
That was not necessarily it's just a consistency thing. And I don't care if it's
Okay.
just, it doesn't look like two organizations.
Which one do you want?
Pick one.
Which one do you want?
Charlotte is competitive.
Perfect.
And
That's
then
what we'll
want
do.
it to seem like two organizations.
That is no problem.
Okay.
That is
But that did not need to be everybody.
I agree. Out of all the problems, this is not one of them. Okay, I'm gonna go.
Okay, when are we talking next? This is what you were asking me, I think, right?
Yes, we can talk tomorrow.
Is like, do we have a meeting scheduled? I do not have anything on my calendar for Thursday, so I don't know if our next PM meeting is supposed to be next week, but yeah. Next PM meeting is next Thursday, but that's not soon enough to figure out, because we have to get all this stuff done by the end of.
Well, let's talk tomorrow, because then we can, I think I have, my day is weird, but anyway, it seems like, I think I could do,
I'm tired.
I think I could do it too, right? Let me,
Congratulations.
Again, I was wrong. I was wrong again.
Congratulations.
Look, I was wrong again.
Yeah.
I did not know the conversation will focus on the word center. I would, if you paid me $1 million.
Well, also, I didn't know number 6 was gonna take like 30 minutes.
I got you right.
Okay, good luck, safe flight. Let's talk tomorrow. Okay, great job, thank you. Do you want to have a debrief tomorrow or not? Just brief?
No,
Okay.
because I'm not here. I
That's
wanna
right,
play.
no, so
Yeah,
then.
remember, I
okay.
stayed here for this meeting.
I
got
know, that's
9:30
right.
flight.
So no debrief tomorrow. Let's just reconnect. When are you back in town or
I
available
come back.
again?
I'll be back Saturday.
Okay, so that's fine. So then let us connect on just, getting those next steps done,
Because
like
what
we
I'd like
said.
is, once this is cleaned up again,
Yeah.
I want to send it out to everybody.
Right, but I think we'd send it again once we do the other things, right? The graphic design, like later. We don't need any more weighing in on this stuff.
No, I don't want weighing in.
Yeah.
I would just like to send it out almost like hey, thank you for your efforts, time. I would send it out even before it's made pretty. If that's not more work.
Yeah.
And my thought is not for input, for communication purposes.
Right. Here's where we landed,
Yeah.
basically. Okay, let me chat with Ward about that. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. I think, let's bring it in, Kevin, bring it in. Right, we made it to here.
Have a safe trip.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Go home and
High five for you. Big moment. Come on, bring it in. Of course.
Ish. Yeah.
However, that funding is gonna
Yeah, I'm just like, did we change it? I'm just trying to go back in my mind, like, did we miss that? Like, was that like a change that was missed in a versioning issue? Because I remember actually digging in the forensics and I saw it in the August 15th version as well. Like, we had the word centering, but it's like, yeah, yes.
That's where I was like, you have a problem with this, you have a problem with